Welcome to It Is What It Is, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Sha Marie. Hopefully everyone's having a good week. I know this episode is like a day late, but it's a day late for a good reason. This Tuesday that you're on now, we have been doing this podcast for a year, guys. So if you've been listening to me all the way back to when I had Jean, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Oh my God, it's been a year. Holy shit. So much has happened personally in a year that is not on this show, which is insane. And I don't know. I love all of you. And it's been amazing. And I said way back then I wasn't going to say who my number one was. And then I've kind of hinted at it. And then, so when I was a teenager, youngest child, when I fell in love with serial killers in general, originally it started out as like my knowledge of them always went Ted Bundy, Golden State, those two mainly for like the popular ones from back when I was a kid. And then I found Ed Kemper, and so he slid into like number 3, and then Ted always stayed at number 1 in like a weird way. And then Golden State, when I got a little older and a little more things came out about him, he went up to number 1. And the only reason he went up to number 1 was the mysteriousness of him. So like not knowing who he was. And then Mindhunter came out, and Kemper easily went from 3 to 1. And then when we found out who the Golden State was, literally he kind of dropped off my number 1 because I was sad that he was not what I expected. I don't know. When we do his, I'll explain it more. But anywho's, little Ed Kemper went up to number 1 because I found him just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And if you haven't watched Mindhunter on Netflix, go ahead and do so. And there's a whole bunch about Ed Kemper. Morbid's first episode, I think, was about Ed Kemper. A bunch of other podcasts have done them. To be honest, when it comes to like listening to true crime podcasts, I stick to Morbid. My Favorite Murder, all that type of shit. So they've all done Ed Kemper already. So there's a million other podcasts to go listen to about it. But since it's my 1 year episode, I just figured I'd do my number 1, and then, we can move on, venture on from there. And actually, I'm gonna spoil you fuckers this week, and you're gonna get another episode because a dear, dear friend of mine is moving out of state into a different state. And she's gonna be listening to me while she drives, along with other podcasts. And so we're gonna do a special little episode for her and do some road trippy crimes, murders, disappearances, whatever I come up with. But onward with Ed Kemper. God, people are going to hate me so fucking much. It's already 4 minutes. People are going to devour me. Anyway, so Ed Kemper was born on December 18th, 1948 in Burbank, California. He is the middle child of the Kempers after his parents' divorce, and he was a good egg. Okay, the mother, she's a very stern woman. His father as well, especially when his dad was stern in the stern, like, I'm doing this to tough love you. His mother was stern in the way of, I don't like you. Two different types of parenting. And she was an alcoholic. She was a drunkard, unfortunately. And she literally was like hateful towards men. Just her experiences with them were not so good. She had a very traumatic upbringing herself when it came to abuse, from what he said. But Ed Kemper is a talker. He is known to talk to anyone and everyone about anything and everything. So, if you ever need a pen pal, there's even a good YouTube video where he talks to these cute little reporters, and like, these people don't even speak the same language. At the beginning, they're talking like Japanese, like waiting for him to come in, and he just sits down and talks to them, and he has them repeat a couple of times, like their questions, but like legitly, he talks to them, talks to anybody and everybody. Except for girls. I guess in person, he's really weird when it comes to women, and I'm breaking this up too. So this is not going to be all 100% Ed Kemper, because I want to be able to discuss things in a different tone versus like the seriousness of what he actually did and then what we've learned from him afterward. So this part, we're just going to cover the first part of his life all the way up until I think he's about 21, and I think we're going to stop at about 21 years old, give or take. So, like I said, his mom was a drunkard and his parents divorced when he was just a wee little. And his mom and his two sisters, he's the middle. Like I said, he has two sisters, a big sister and a little sister. They lived in Montana. It's very close to Idaho. And he had a relationship with his little sister. She's only 2 years younger than him. Not much with his older sister because she was older. And she was already like out hanging out with friends, chilling, fucking doing her own thing. So they didn't really have much of a relationship, but his little sister did. And he hung out with kids around the neighborhood. He started having very, very dark fantasies and dark thoughts when he was about 8 years old. And they say, and the website I'm using to refer to, just so I don't get lost in my rambling, I printed off his biography from biography.com. But they said in this article that he cut off his sister's Barbie's hands. Well, there's one interview with him from prison where he talks about that. And he says that he did not cut off the hands of these Barbies to like cut off, to mutilate them. She had ruined one of his toys and made it to where it still worked, but it didn't work so good. And so he went and wanted to break her toy. The Barbie's head naturally popped on. Well, not naturally, but easily popped on and off, on and off, on and off. So to him, that was not going to do anything to her doll. And so that's why he says he cut the hands off. He's like, I didn't do it as like, ooh, I'm going to turn into a killer one day. He's like, I did it to break her fucking toy. She broke mine. So that is true, but just that's what I mean, like in a different tone. Is like, people want to look back at the childhoods of these killers and nitpick every little thing, when really it's as simple as his fucking sister broke his toy and he just wanted to pay her back. It wasn't like, oh my god, he's fucking planning on being a psycho killer, even though he was having very dark fantasies and very dark thoughts about like killing his mom. And he made a comment that like if you ever had to have kissed a teacher or something like that, you would have to kill her first. Like, he just made very off the wall, very weird comments and had just very dark thoughts, because his mom was very angry, and he was treated very differently than his sisters. And he was getting to the age where he was starting to put all of this together, that like, there is a difference between me and them. I am different from them. And so, yeah, he was a little darker than he should have been. And he did say that the game of gas chamber, which I don't even know if it's really a gas chamber. I would have really called this game like electric chair. But him and another friend and his sister, someone around that time, I forgot who he said, was executed. And so they would play a game where they would tie you up to the chair in his room, and then you flick on the light switch, and then like you would act like you're getting electrocuted and die. And then they would play games where you would like get rolled up into a rug really, really tight, and then you would get left, and like they would wait and see how long it took you to get out of it by yourself. Like, just really fucking weird games. And he says, he's like, it was Montana. What the fuck else were we supposed to do? Like, he didn't say it like that, but like, he's like, really, we were kids. We didn't have much to entertain ourselves. We didn't have balling out money. Like, we were just chilling. So we played how we played. Might have been a little dark. Yes. And so they did that. And fun games. He also buried a cat alive when he was a kid, and then dug it back up later on to play with it. And then he took its head off, and like, I don't even... like, he had this thing about taking heads off. I don't understand it really. And he was like, always, him and his mom started like really, really butting heads. And he really, really wanted to go see his dad. And so his mom's like, you know what? Fuck off. And then he just couldn't like handle his mom anymore. And he just was like, I don't know. She just had a very, I'm going to assume, this is all assumption. She just had like a very in tune feeling that something with this kid is not right. Like, she had him, even though at one point in time his sister did have a bedroom basement as well. But that was in a different home, he claims. But he says that, like, him going to the basement at such a young age was, like, really mind fucking with him. Because he looked at it as, like, he was going to hell, they were going to heaven, the living room, and, like, everything else in the middle area was earth, and, like, the common in between. There was no light switch. It was terrifying for him to down there. There was a light switch, but, like, you had to, like, walk across all the darkness. And like, I don't know, he was just terrified. And so he really wanted out of this situation. I mean, think, his first victims is a fucking cat. Like, right, like, thankfully nowadays we keep track of that. If you report that, like, your kid, like, abuses animals, that shit's, like, it's tracked, it's kept. And so he was stealing from his mom. Like, not stealing, but like he was taking change and everything else. And so at the age of 13, he was killing animals with knives and whatnot have yous. And he goes and lives with his dad in California. He leaves Montana. Now, when he's in California, his dad's like letting him and his half-brother, his stepbrother, I don't know if they're halves or steps, either or, him and his brother are doing chores, they're earning money, like they're going out to do things, and they're like, hey, can we have a candy bar? And the dad's like, yeah, sure, pal. And like, there was rules, but there was meanings to the father's rules. It was, go do this because it's teaching you responsibility. Don't do that because that can hurt you. If you save your money, you can spend, like, you know what I mean? Like, his dad was just teaching him in a very different manner. He was gaining respect. Where at home with his mom, he was getting beaten down and downgraded. And with his dad, he's getting treated like a man. He's getting treated like a man. He's no different than the brother. And so, for some odd reason, and it's really weird that I don't think, at least I didn't find anything in my many, many years, at least that I can remember off the top of my head, that when he went back, why he then went to go live with his grandparents. But he did in North Fork, California. And really, I've always believed that it's just like he went back home and his mom's like, fuck you. And he's like, fuck you too. And so there you go. You know, bada bing, bada boom. I could be completely wrong. And people are going to be like, she's not a fan at all. But really, I am. Like, I just don't know why. At least right now, it's not coming to me. And he hated living at his grandparents' farm. Hated it. Before going there, he was already learning about firearms and stuff because he had toy guns and stuff like that. Well, when he was out there, his grandparents took away his rifle from him because he was killing a bunch of fucking birds and a bunch of small animals. And they're like, this is very disturbing. There's no reason why you as a young man should be out there wanting to kill these things just to go out and kill them and have a good time. And his grandma is a very, very, very hard-headed, stern woman, just like his mom. She is very empowering, he said. And he said he loved his grandpa, and the detectives said that the first time that he ever showed any like type of love or anything was for his grandfather, which is really weird. Well, not really weird, but really sad because what ends up happening. But on August 27th of 1964, he went into like this rampage. At 15 years old, he kills his grandma in the kitchen right after an argument. And then he sits there and he's like, fuck, my grandpa's gonna come home. Like, I love my grandpa. My grandpa's old. He's gonna be devastated when he sees what I've done. He's gonna die of a heart attack when his wife's dead. And so he just decides to wait outside. And he shot him by his car, and then he hid the bodies. And then he called his mom afterward, and he tells his mom, he's like, holy fucking shit, this is what happens. And she says, well, you need to call the police, obviously, and then tell them what to do. What you've done, and what happened, and everything else. Like, you need to call and report yourself. And so he does. And he later on said that, like, in that argument with his grandma, like him killing her, he just wanted to see what it felt like. It was like one of those, like, I'm angry, I've always wanted to do this, so I'm gonna do it, and we're just gonna see what happens type of shit. And that's what happened, which is not very comforting. So, but then again, you look at the fact that, like, he says the only reason he killed his grandpa is because he loved him so much he didn't want him to be sad. So, like, what do you believe? You know what I mean? It's really weird. And when he's handed over to the California Youth Authorities, they do all their testing and whatnot have you. Then he finds out that he's fucking, like, hella smart. And he's always been told by his mom that he's a dum-dum. So when they tell him that he's smart, he's like, OMG, I didn't know. And that he did have schizophrenia. And when he went to the state hospital, it was a maximum security facility for the mentally ill, convicted folk. While he was there, he learned like, he paid attention and learned so well, and he was so good at manipulating that he was teaching other kids, he was helping, he was taking notes, he was given access to the files, almost call them folders, the files of other people. And so when it came down in time for him to do like his final whatever, he was so good. And everything else that they let him go, they were like, all right, no, dude, you're healed. Like, we've healed you. Congratulations. In 1969, he was released at 21. And they said, this dude should not go back to his mom. Him and his mom need to cut ties. They are not good. It is toxic. We should not put those two together. Well, they took that fucking idea and that recommendation and straight shoved it up their asses and didn't care. And they said that, like, when he lives there, he's very abusive. His his psychology issues are not very good. But nonetheless, he does. He rejoined her in Santa Cruz, California, where she had moved after ending her third marriage and taking a job at the University of California. He said that she would get with men all the time, and it was like one of the things he was like, ugh. But then again, she blamed him and said that it was his fault that she didn't have like a healthy sex life, which is kind of weird to blame on your children. And then Kemper himself went to community college, and he also worked different jobs, finding employment in the Department of Transportation in 1971. He had applied to become a state trooper, but because he is ginormous, literally ginormous, he's like 6'9" and 300 fucking pounds, and he had the nickname of Big Ed. They were like, yeah, no, you're too fucking huge, my friend. And so instead of becoming a cop, he went and hung out at the local bars and everything else where he would hang out with the cops and like get to chum it up with them and still get the lowdown on what's going on. And at the time when he got out of the hospital and everything else, he went and got his record expunged and everything else, but he was still like, he went to go buy a gun, and when they did the background check, that still popped up. And so 2 officers were sent to go and get the thingy. Yeah, guns from him and everything else. Like, he's a huge ass dude. He is a huge dude. And he even went to like a training school type of thing to try to become a cop. Like, he literally tried. He went, and even like the cops at like the bars and stuff were giving him tips on like, know this information, this can help you become a policeman. But like, legitly, his size, like his bigness is what disqualified him. It wasn't his ability, it was the size, his ability and size. Like, you might be big, bro, but you big dudes are slow as, like, I'm not gonna say you're slow, I just did, but like, little cars, you gotta be quick. It's just a whole thing. Like, I think that's why, because I just look at it as like, this dude's a cop, like, wannabe cop, right? If you're trying to get out of a goddamn cop car all quick, you're 6'9", bro. 6'9". But, like, that's what I mean. Like, they were that comfortable with him, like, over the years. Like, when these two cops went to go get it, like, they were like, oh, we need to go team up because this dude's big. But, like, he had such a way with them. And that's way later on, too, by the way. I make that sound like it's, like, right after he gets out of the hospital. It's not. It's after he's done committed murders. But, like, he literally, that whole time, is going to the bars. He's hanging out with them. He's buying them a drink and doing the whole, like, oh, I want to be, but I'm highway anyway. And he's working for the Department of Transportation instead. And so that's kind of like where they were, like, jousting with, you know what I mean? Anyway, you guys are going to think I'm, like, the dumbest. I don't, it's not that I'm, like, up in love with Ed Kemper. It just fascinates me that, like, once he gets told he's smart, he then is like, well, I'm smarter than everyone, and I'm going to use this now for evil. And that his mind just fascinates the shit out of me. And he hasn't even started killing yet, and he's already, like, manipulated himself out of a state hospital. Like, this dude knows he's fucking crazy. He knows. He knows there's something wrong with him. He doesn't understand it. And he's missed all of this time because he was from 15 to 21. He was in the hospital. So he's missed all the outside life. Everything else has been changing. We've had the summer of love. We've had a war. And he was hit by a car on his motorcycle. Could you imagine that? Big ass dude on a motorcycle. His arm was badly injured. He received $15,000 in a settlement that he got from the filing a lawsuit against that driver. So he was unable to work now for the department. He turned his mind towards other pursuits. And he started picking up hitchhikers. And he started driving around. And I don't know. Like, this, like, we're going to get into, this is where we're going to end it. Because we're going to get into other stuff. But he buys a car and with his settlement money, and then he starts getting stuff to take with him in the car. Not just normal things that are going in the car. Guns, knives, and handcuffs. AKA a kill kit. And we're driving around meaninglessly in California, mad at our mom, hating life, can't be a cop because we're too big, and we're going to start picking up some folk, and I'm going to tell y'all what happens after that. But like I said, there's going to be another episode in between parts 1 and part 2 of Ed Kemper. So, little Eddie Kemper, what have we learned so far? His mommy has done very mean things to him. Verbally said very mean things to him. She's abusive. Him and his little sister played odd childhood games. He claims out of boredom, not out of craziness. He's now killed 2 people, but they look at it as just like a mental break that he couldn't take chores anymore because he was a child. And so he's already killed Grandma and Grandpa. And we're just gonna move right along with our downward spiral into how we end up in prison for the rest of our life. But yeah, that's part 1. I don't know, guys. It gets more fucked up because what he does with these people, with these poor ladies, is just absolutely horrid. And I'm going to apologize now. A lot of them have some very difficult names. I'm going to practice saying their names. But once I get in front of the microphone, I kind of get nervous. So we'll keep trying. But anywho, follow me on Facebook. It is what it is, a true crime podcast. On YouTube as well. On Instagram, it is what it is, pod19. Yep, pod19 altogether, no spaces. Or on Twitter at it is what it is 208, because that's where I'm from. Please remember, don't hate me. I haven't said anything negative about victims yet. This is all just baby Eddie Kemp. And so far, we're going to blame everything on his mom, how he likes it, and he's just a very good manipulator, and everything's his mommy's fault. So right now, as I leave you, everything is all his mom's fault. And then when we come back, it'll all still be his mom's fault, but I'll tell you that it's not his mom's fault. It's not. He just blames his mom. As a mom, I take it very personal. It's not his mom's fault. She could have been nicer, yeah, but it's not. So yeah, eat your hearts out. Bye, guys.